Ladies and gentlemen, I have been to the Great Wall of China. I have seen the pyramids of Egypt. I even witnessed a grown man satisfy a camel. But never in all my years as a sportscaster have I witnessed something as improbable, as impossible as what we've witnessed here today. It's Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. With hundreds of episodes and thousands of listeners each week, it takes a whole team to get the Thrive Loud podcast train rolling. And on board this super-powered engine, I have been blessed with the most wonderful Thrive Loud interns over the years. And these interns are students at university with a focus on communication and business. And in previous semesters, I've often interviewed the interns, or in some instances, the interns surprised me, broke into the studio, and recorded fun episodes on their own. However, this past year was a bit different, to say the least. And in the spirit of this very different year, the interns decided to have a conversation about what it was like being in college this year amidst the pandemic. From having to be on campus, always wearing masks, to learning virtually, to having to socialize in a very unique environment. And most recently, having to adapt to returning back to normal after living and studying through the pandemic. Listen in as Sid Decatur, Shawnee Clark, Sujin Kim, Freya Salzman, and Sophie Grippo have a conversation about being in college this year and what it was like for them and their peers. And while they're pretty focused on being serious on this topic, don't you worry. They poke a bit fun of me for being my quirky self, acting like a dad boss to the team, and making fun of the serious tone I seem to take when I text messages in a group chat. By the way, team, I'm working on improving that. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Thrive Loud interns moving onward and upward here on Thrive Loud.
Get ready to Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
But like you kind of have a moment where it's like what do I do? like you have like there's like really you definitely lose like a lot of like maybe not like face to face because like you still interact. I still have like roommates and people I live with, but being in a room full of people that you don't know is something that is like sort of an art, I feel like, and it's like a muscle that needs like practicing and training. And when you like kind of lose that, there's going to definitely be some like readjustment. I wonder how like social cues are going to change. Like maybe there's going to be some new like dynamics formed out of that.
Yeah, it's definitely super weird to go from like complete isolation. Like I know some people in their quarantines were sort of allowed to see friends. I was not at all. My parents were super, super strict about it, which I understand. I wasn't like upset with them, but I literally never saw people. And then I came here and I live in a house with like 30 other people. So like being with all these people all the time again was so weird for me. Like I totally forgot how to like normally interact. And like I'd catch myself saying things and I was like, wait, was that weird? Was that normal? Like I literally developed like anxieties that I'd never had in my life before. Ever.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It also got really exhausting. Like I live in college town with two other roommates. And so, it's totally fine, like with my two other roommates, just the three of us in the apartment. But when we start to see all these other people at school, like at the very beginning, when I was getting used to it, I honestly found it really draining. And I'm the kind of person who loves to be around lots of people. But just because there had been so much time away from giant groups of people that it was almost like it was overwhelming. And it was like I got home and I was like, I need to go to bed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I totally relate to that. It's so weird. It's also just part of it when you're in like a social setting now, like even though most of this campus, I'm pretty sure like 74% of campus is vaccinated. But it's just so weird when you're in a group of people. It feels like wrong almost. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. It feels like I'm doing something wrong by like being with people outside even, but like now outside is like better and it's like slowly going back to normal. But part of me is just like, this isn't allowed. Like, what am I doing? But then it's like, well, I don't know. It's such a weird, like dilemma of whether or not this is something I should be doing after all this time of like being alone and inside and whatnot versus like, yeah, but like not everyone's vaccinated. So what does that mean for someone else? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also the new mask mandate or lack thereof is really interesting. Like I'm personally vaccinated, and I think everyone pretty much that I surround myself with is vaccinated. So like, you know, the CDC says like you don't have to wear a mask, but it also feels kind of scandalous. Like even if you're outside, like I feel kind of weird. So I hold my mask sometimes, like maybe chin strap, but I usually like hold my mask. Like this past week with this new CDC update of you don't have to wear the mask if you're vaccinated, which is interesting. It's just a weird transition.
Yeah, when they
and I
yeah, no, you
so, okay. As much as I like want things to go back to normal as soon as they can, it just feels so weird because like we've been in this like new world for so long now. Like the slightest change, like the mask mandate, like it just feels so weird, and like it feels like everything's moving so quickly, even though it really isn't. Like we've been in this for like so long, like more than a year and a half, I guess.
But yeah, I was just saying that to my roommate. So I'm a junior, like going to be a senior, and we were talking about how like time was so weird this year. Like obviously last year was kind of cut off when we were sent home, and then the beginning of this year was kind of still uncertain. And all of a sudden we're seniors now, or I'm a senior now, and like this time went really, really fast because I remember leaving my sophomore year to go home for the pandemic, like it was yesterday, but also it went kind of slow sometimes where there were like times where we were all in quarantine, and like obviously that goes a lot slower. So yeah, just like the way that time has kind of gone fast and slow is super interesting.
It's so weird how we're suddenly, well, I'm a junior, or going to be a junior. And our freshman year was cut off. So it feels like I've never even had a singular normal year of college. And now like suddenly I'm an upperclassman. Like it feels so weird because especially I'm considering going abroad / I really want to go abroad. So it's like, I'm not even gonna have half of a normal college experience. Like I'm gonna get, and obviously going abroad is a choice I'm making, and I understand that, and I still want to, but I'm only gonna have maybe hopefully next semester, and then senior year, I'm counting on that will be normal. But
me too, like, okay.
Yeah, it's just, and like I was actually on the phone with my mom today because I was planning out my work schedule for the summer, and I was telling her how I was gonna work until like the second week of August and then go right to school. She's like, what do you mean go right to school? Like you don't have classes till the 26th. And I was like, yeah, but everyone's moving in a week earlier. And if you think I'm going to miss 1 week when I haven't had a normal year at college yet, like I don't want to miss a thing, especially when it's finally going to be a bit more normal.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also like touching back to returning to like normal things again. Like I just remember a few days ago, I went to campus to pick up a prescription and I saw like 5 people I knew, and I'm just like so not used to that. Like, and like the anxiety is like right back. And to think that like next fall it's going to be like all back in person and we're all going to be together again, it's just like a crazy thought. And I feel like we're like almost living in like a social experiment right now with like people taking off their masks and like everything opening back up, and time is like going even faster now. And it's just like, I don't know, it's crazy being a college kid right now for sure.
Speaking of like changes, or sorry, Sid, speaking of actual physical changes, I don't know if this happens to anyone. I don't know if anyone wears glasses, but I have a very light prescription. And then I got to campus in the fall and people would walk by me. I would notice like people would walk by me and wave. And it like took me a second to recognize who they were. And I was like, oh my God, maybe I need to go to the eye doctor. And I think my prescription worsened over the pandemic, probably from just being on my computer so much. But it was really awkward when I, had those interactions with people waving as they're like walking down Hope Plaza. And I was like, what? And it's since been fixed, but I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but that's kind of like a physical reaction to being inside for so long.
Yeah, I know also for people with glasses that like the whole like mask fogging up your glasses is a whole other challenge to deal with. But touching back to, I think it was Shawnee said that we're sort of living in a social experiment right now. I think that something that is very connected to that, and I've been thinking about for a while. I don't know if any of you have taken the class 6 Pretty Good Books. If you haven't, I would greatly recommend it. It's in arts and sciences, and you basically just read 6 pretty good books over the course of a semester and write about them. And the authors come in to discuss their work with you in the class, and it's really insightful and an amazing experience. Like Malcolm Gladwell came in, but
That's
a professor from Yale. Yeah, Professor Christakis from Yale wrote this book called Apollo's Arrow, and he wrote about the sociological effects of COVID on the U.S. population. And he had this interesting piece that he talked about in class, which was discussing the differences between perceived realities of the individual, like so-called like living your truth to a certain extent, and the actuality of a situation, and how during COVID people have, sort of to varying degrees, like lived their own truth. Like, oh, I believe that this works in this way. I believe that masks work in this way, or social distancing works in this way. We're seeing the opposite of that now, I think, with everything sort of being lifted. People are ready to sort of live a different truth at different rates. I think college students in particular are quite ready that while there are some anxieties, like we're ready to not have to wear masks when we go to class and like be vaccinated and enjoy that. I think that also, like, I feel really judged walking down the street. Like if you go downtown ever, if you go to like a park and you have your mask off and you see like, a couple or something like that, like some people from the area who like clearly live in Ithaca, maybe they're like middle-aged or older, like they will look at you if they're wearing their masks outside and you aren't. And you, in that moment, you're like, you feel like you're really doing something wrong. It's going to take a while for people to like collectively sort of relax some of those restrictions. And I'm wondering if that social impact of feeling judged is going to slow things down at all, because people don't want to. There's a whole bunch of implications of when you stop following those restrictions. What does that say about you? During COVID, it's like, what does it say about you if you wear this kind of mask versus other kinds of masks? What does it say about you if you have your mask below your nose? I think that for fear of identity among others, it might slow us down.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to the whole concept of walking outside and feeling judged. Even on this campus, I sort of wish there was like some visual signifier that I'm vaccinated at times, because I'll be walking completely alone through campus. I won't be that close to anybody. I'm double vaccinated since March. And there are still times where I'm walking by people and I feel like I'm getting like a dirty look or like the eye or something. And part of me wishes I could just be like, oh no, I'm vaccinated and I got a COVID test 2 days ago and it's negative, because we get tested all the time too. But obviously I'm not going to randomly scream at a stranger like, oh, don't worry about me. And like, it's just such an awkward part of it all. And you feel so guilty, but at the same time, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong. So it's such a weird, like, once again, like this mental dilemma of like, do I do what I know is okay and right? Or do I do something else because of the social pressures of looking like I don't care about this virus? Also, oh, Johnny, you speak.
Oh, well, I totally agree. And like, I think it's crazy, like, that we're going to be like watching all this unfold. And even just like, I feel like it happened so fast. You know what I mean? Like, ever since the CDC made that announcement, like I went to the Commons, I think that day, and it felt like a different place entirely. Like everyone was out and about and no one was wearing masks. I was like scared to take mine off, and then at the same time, I was kind of like, this is such a relief. Like, I'm also double vaccinated for over a month. And like today I went to Target this morning and people in Target aren't wearing their masks, like working in Target. And I'm like, what does this mean? Like, I need like a rule or like something. And I heard that like Jason's in College Town is like, take off your mask. Like, it's fine, because it is their choice, but it's just like slowly it's happening. But I agree that like, I think the way you're looked at and viewed is going to, like, the way you feel when you aren't wearing one is going to slow people down from taking them off entirely, for sure.
I also think relating to masks in general and like sort of like going back to in person and taking off our masks is such a crucial part of school in general. And like the experience you have in your classes is meeting other people in your classes. And when we were online, obviously it's so much harder to do that. It's not a lot of people feel comfortable just randomly sliding into somebody's Zoom direct messages and saying, hey, or just reaching out in that way. And if you don't know anyone in your class, maybe like you don't have anyone to ask questions about for an assignment coming up, or you need a partner for a project. And even though we did have some in person this year, we had our masks on. So it was sort of like this weird, like, way of putting up a front, for like lack of a better way of explaining it. And I felt like even though I was sitting there in person with other people, we were 4 seats apart from each other. We had masks on. We couldn't tell if people were smiling at us, what they were looking at, how they were expressing themselves. And such an important part of like being in school is being able to talk to your peers, and not only just making friends, like the social aspect, but also like having people to rely on and speak to about classes, especially at a school like Cornell, where classes are not easy. Like, I was lucky enough this semester that most of my classes I knew people, but in the ones I didn't, I felt pretty much lost, honestly. I don't know if anyone else can really relate to that, but
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because I had one in-person class this semester and I had that same concern of like, we're all sitting very far apart from one another. We were in a huge lecture hall and there were probably like 25 or 30 students in the lecture hall. And, our whole face was covered with our masks, but somehow our professor, I don't know if any of you have had Professor Poppy McLeod, she got to know all of our names, which is super impressive because obviously half our face were covered. But it made it feel so much more personable. So yeah, I was really impressed by that, but I do think in general it's really hard to recognize people and to develop relationships with people when you're sitting so far apart from one another and you can't even really see each other's faces. And it's also like that awkward moment when you're walking by someone and you're like, I think I recognize you from my class because like I think I recognize your eyes and your hair and maybe your eyebrows, but also I'm not sure if it's you. So hi. I don't know if you guys have had that experience on campus, but that's definitely happened to me this semester.
Yes, there are times where I've seen people that I know, but I don't realize it's them. And then right after the fact, I feel so horrible that I didn't say anything. But it's so hard to tell if, especially in the summertime, people are wearing sunglasses or hats and a mask. How am I don't know. And I feel so guilty. But at the same time, I feel like everyone kind of has a common understanding that this happens a lot. So.
Or there have been instances where I'll only see certain people with a mask on, and then the first time I see them without a mask on, I'm just like, whoa, I was not expecting you to look like that. Like I feel like my brain just kind of fills in the gaps and I form an image of them, but then they take their mask off and I'm like, I do not recognize you at all. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually had that experience the other day because with the filling in the rest thing, our house parents, I live in a sorority house and our house parents are always wearing masks, of course. And then the other day, my house dad was showing me how to do something and he was like, are you vaccinated? And then took off his mask. And I was like, what? The fact that I've been living with this person for a year and I had no idea what he really looked like. I was so taken aback and shocked and alarmed, honestly.
My professor in one of my classes that was in person, he actually would have us make small videos of ourselves for certain assignments, either pitching our ideas and whatnot. And he specifically asked for the videos to be without a mask on. He was like, I never get to see your faces. So if you could please try to take this video in a place where you can have your mask off, that'd be amazing. And then you can all look at each other's videos and actually know what you guys look like before coming back to class with masks on. And I thought that was a really cool idea because it did totally help. When you have a mask on and you're sitting super far away from people, you obviously can't really tell what they look like you guys were saying. So having those videos and being able to sort of put names to faces was definitely really cool. And I think it was a really good idea that he had. But hopefully it's not an idea that professors need in the future because we won't have this problem for much longer.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking back to my pre-enroll. Like I think most of, if not all of my classes for the fall are supposed to be in person. I don't know about you guys, which is so exciting. And I'm so excited to have that real, back to normal nature of learning. But also I must say, I let me make it clear. I love in-person classes. That was my favorite part of the semester was having an in-person class. I love learning in person. However, there is some level of flexibility that comes with online classes that I wonder if we'll miss. It's so nice when the weather started to get warmer to sit outside of CTB and listen to my class from CTB and not have to walk all the way to campus and sit inside of a room. There are some levels of flexibility where it's okay, I could take my class from this new place instead of be sitting in my room or sitting in the lecture hall. So that's kind of interesting. It would be an interesting shift. Obviously, I think I'd much prefer to be in person, but it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking about that because I feel like there are parts of this that we're going to miss. If you think about the weather right now and imagine walking to campus for class, I just remember how hot I would get last year in the heat with the hills. So, and that's just one thing. I think even though I love learning in person and I was so much more energized last year when I was in in-person lectures because I'm an extrovert. So I'm I get energy from other people, from the people I meet in my classes and my professors, but there are definitely perks to COVID learning as well.
Yeah, especially waking up. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just saying that, especially when it's freezing too. In Ithaca, it gets so cold. So having to walk to classes in both semesters at some point is going to be a huge wake up call. I basically just stayed inside all day when it was that cold this winter. Oh my gosh. And now and I'm going to be living in College Town, which is a bit further from campus, obviously. So those walks are something I will definitely need to start mentally preparing for, because I'm honestly scared.
Yeah. I would say the one thing that I really, really appreciate, besides the flexibility, or I guess these kind of go hand in hand with the whole quarantine and online class thing, is I've really fallen in love with my new morning routine of like waking up an hour before class. I have time to exercise. I have time to eat breakfast. Like, I don't have to like rush to class. I just log on to my computer a minute before the class starts, which is nice instead of having that cushion of like, okay, I need to leave 25 minutes before my class to get there on time to, get a nice coffee, whatever it is. And so that kind of degree of like, I can just wake up a lot later is really nice. And also just like, Sophie, you were just talking about the walk from College Town to campus. And I have to say, quarantine, I think a lot of people have felt this way, has really helped me appreciate long walks. Like, I liked long walks. I liked hiking before quarantine, but something about being inside all of last summer and all of this school year, I have become like a daily, every day, I need to go on some sort of walk. And I just discovered a new trail right past Coalyard. If anyone wants like a new path recommendation, I can send it to you. It was gorgeous. I went yesterday.
Oh my gosh, awesome. I was just going to say something and I'm totally blanking on what I was going to say.
I was going to ask Sophie, you worked with Lou last year, right? So last semester. Okay, so then you haven't had the context of COVID versus no COVID internship here.
I have not, but I think because he lives in Westchester, it would have still been mostly virtual. I think that's one of the things that wouldn't have changed as much, but it is interesting to think about how it could have been different had it not been in the time of COVID.
At least between us, like at least between the group that's on campus here actively,
Yeah. I'm also just remembering what I wanted to say before, and that's about going back to sort of what Freya was talking about with benefits of online classes. I think that something else that's sort of nice is that students really appreciate is that if you just woke up and like you're scrambling to class, you can keep your camera off. You don't have to worry about putting yourself together for a group of people. But something else that I think, oh my gosh, I keep blanking on everything I'm going to say. So what the heck was I just talking about? Guys, I'm having a problem. Lou's going to have to cut this.
Online classes?
Yeah. But what was it? Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm back. Something that I think has really affected me, at least, is it's really hard for me to pay attention to virtual classes. There's so many distractions in my room wherever I am. My phone is right there if I want to look at it. I just feel like, or I'm on my computer too, and I can open a tab and the professor wouldn't know. I just feel like I have had so much difficulty focusing in these classes in general that I have to rewatch lectures and relearn everything just because I'm sitting there and I feel like I'm looking and nothing is getting through my head. So I do think that's something that I'm really excited about for in-person classes, is actually being able to be really engaged again and learning how to actively listen again, because I feel like those are some skills that I totally lost over quarantine that I'm like really excited to regain and rebuild, because like freshman year, I paid attention so well in my classes. I was in person. I was looking at the professor. They had huge slides on the board. It was so easy. But now when I'm just sitting at my desk all day long, staring at the same screen, it's nearly impossible for me to stay focused. I'm sure you guys can all relate to that. So I think that's something I am looking forward to with in-person classes.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Go ahead.
I had my one in-person class this semester and my phone would always be away. Like there was no question that my phone would be away, because it was almost disrespectful. Like there were 20, 25 students in the in-person part of the lecture. I wouldn't have my phone out while the professor was speaking. As I kind of mentioned earlier, she got to know all of our names and like it felt kind of, like I was more engaged. I wanted to pay attention. And it was just not something that ever crossed my mind. And the only kind of online class that I could really stay engaged in, Sophie and I were talking about, I think before we started the recording, was this really small class that we took, and our cameras had to be on the entire class. Like the professor asked for every single class, every single student had their camera on. And so it was like pretty small and very conversation based. And because of that, I felt like I was really engaged. But anytime that I had the option to turn off my camera, that's where it all went downhill for me. Is like I would just check out. Like it's much easier to pick up your phone and scroll through Instagram when no one's looking at your actual face and kind of holding you accountable in a way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I actually had, I think, kind of a unique experience because in the fall I had all classes except for one that it was like no camera, no one ever put their camera on. And then this spring I had all classes that were like camera on, attendance taken. Like if it's off, then you're not there. So I did like think I paid like better attention in that case, but another obstacle that I'm definitely not going to miss. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've changed locations like 6 times during this thing because I had a desk in my room that like faced the rest of my room. So if my roommate was ever doing anything, I couldn't have my camera on or like stuff like that. My roommate's asleep right now. So I've like literally been scrambling all over my house trying to find like anywhere with like a solid background because that's been like just an obstacle for me all year. So having to like get myself together and then have my camera on and then find a good background has been something I will definitely not miss next year.
To that point, like, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but when you're sitting in an in-person class, not only, as someone mentioned earlier, you can't turn to the person next to you and start up a conversation. You can't like sort of just have those naturally like sort of like propinquity, like close surrounding, like someone's physically close to you, so it's easy to just have a natural interaction with them. But also you're not sitting in class with a mirror in front of you. Like you're not looking at your own appearance the entire time while you're just like sitting there. And something that like in smaller Zoom classes especially, I feel like it can be kind of distracting, seeing yourself and wondering like, oh, do I look like I'm paying attention? Do I look like I care? Wondering what messages you're sending off based on how you can see yourself, and how you're displaying yourself to the people around you. It's a very direct and subtle but real factor that like plays into how you, at least how I sit at my desk, you know? And I think that also takes away from your learning, like whether you have your camera on or not. Obviously you can have, I prefer to have like the mode where Zoom doesn't show me, it just shows whoever's talking, you know? But you know, if you're speaking in class, it can kind of be like, wow, like that's what I look like. It's something that also can sort of take away from that experience. Even if you do have your camera on and that helps you pay attention and with accountability, that's still there too.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot, especially with Zoom interviews. Like this is kind of specific, but you know, like in class, of course, I noticed that and I want to seem engaged. But when I was interviewing for summer internships, I really hyper noticed what I looked like and how engaged I was in the camera. Like you can see me now kind of like getting closer to my camera, using my hands, like widening my eyes, really trying to engage and make it seem like we were having a one-on-one conversation. And I definitely do that. I try to do that in a lot of my Zoom calls, but I especially noticed that when I was like in a suit jacket, like interviewing and trying to win someone over. That was kind of like a big notice for me versus like if it was in person, you know, of course I would aim to do the same things, but I wouldn't be looking at myself and watching myself as I was trying to act engaged.
Yeah, there isn't that feedback. Just like it's like so instantaneous and in your face.
What is everybody's plans for the summer work-wise? Do any of you guys have jobs or internships, or what's going on with everyone?
I have an internship in the marketing department of American Express. So I will be working mostly virtually. I'm waiting to get my team assignment, my like, you know, whatever it's called, my group. But yeah, I'm doing marketing there, which should be pretty cool. And I just recently heard that there are going to be some optional in-person events. So I'll definitely be there for the optional in-person events.
Oh, that's so exciting. So you're going to be mostly virtual, but every now and then you can go in?
I think so. I don't know the specifics of it, but I hope so, because the office isn't too far from where I live in New York City. And I would love to have some of that kind of in-person degree that we talked about earlier in this conversation.
Yeah, it's such an interesting factor when you like start a position virtually. I know that my brother is 26 years old, and in April of 2020, he actually started a new job. So he had planned to start the job before COVID hit, but in quarantine is when he actually made the transition. So for almost an entire year, he never actually met any of his coworkers in person. He just moved back into the city about a month ago. So since then, he has started to go into the office a lot more and meet people. But I just can't imagine working at a company for a year before ever getting to really meet and talk to and like be face to face with your coworkers. I feel like such a big problem of virtual learning and virtual work is that we just don't have that same form of connection. And that connection is so important. It also, just being able to see people's gestures and their facial expressions in person is such a nice feeling. You understand what they're trying to say so much better, and you actually get to build like a close bond. I really can't imagine getting that close to someone just over a FaceTime or a Zoom call.
Yeah, totally. I kind of had that experience last year because my whole internship was virtual, so I never actually met anyone that I worked with, and it almost feels like it didn't happen because I don't know what they look like in real life. But this summer I'm working at an investment management firm in the city, and it's actually entirely in person, which is going to be really interesting because I've never done, like, I had my program last year, but I've never done like a work every day in person that was like a actual job rather than like being a waitress, or not that those aren't actual jobs, but I'm excited, but I'm definitely nervous. Like, I don't know how to act at like a company in person. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'll be all in person this summer, which is going to be interesting.
How does it work with like the masks and the distancing? Does everyone have to be vaccinated? Like, how does it work with your?
I don't know yet, but they emailed like a month ago being like, we're happy to announce this program will be entirely in person. Please get vaccinated if you haven't already. And I already had. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think that they were able to like divide up the company a little bit, like a third. They've got a new office a little bit away from, like, in Connecticut. It's based in New York City. So I think a lot of people are working in that one, and then a lot of people are virtual, and then the rest are in New York City. So, but all the interns will be in New York City, which is exciting, but a little scary.
That's so exciting. I'm jealous. I've always wanted to do the New York City commute.
Sophie, what are you doing this summer? Do you know?
I have 2 part-time internships. One is completely remote as of right now. They're hoping that in July they'll start being in person all the time. I think they're slowly transitioning, but it's based in what their headquarters is based in Westchester. I'm working for a cosmetics company, and I want to shout out Lou right now because he totally helped me get this gig. They're called Grande Cosmetics, and I've always known this brand and like thought it was super awesome. So to work with them is super cool. And then I'm also doing part-time with a marketing. Oh, and I'm doing marketing for them. And then I'm also doing marketing for another healthcare marketing agency called 120/80 Marketing, which is based in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I only live about 20 minutes from Greenwich. So that will be in person, which is really exciting. So actually I will get to see people face to face, which is something I'm really, really looking forward to. It's gonna be the first time having this experience in, well, first of all, forever, because I didn't get an internship last year because I was a freshman and it was COVID and it just wasn't going to happen. But having this real like job experience in person is going to be super cool.
Yeah, that's sick. That's also the balancing the 2 internships is super, super cool. And it's kind of nice because you get the kind of like the perks of the online internship for when you want the perks of the online kind of work. And then you get the perks of the in-person work, which obviously are plentiful. So it seems like that's super, super cool. And also Grande Cosmetics, I feel like I've heard of that before. I feel like they sell that at Sephora, and I'm excited for you to get good samples.
Thank you. Yeah, they're at Sephora, they're at Ulta, they're at a bunch of places. I could talk about them, but that's probably not the best time. But yeah, I actually am trying to figure out my schedule right now because I'm doing 20 and 20 hours. So I have to start one of them on like Wednesday, let's say at 8:30 in the morning. So I'm like, I really hope the virtual one wants to start at 8:30 in the morning on Wednesday so I can wake up later rather than having to wake up even earlier to then commute. But it's up to them. But I was like, I really hope that they want to do 8:30 for me so I can get in bed for a little bit longer.
You'll make it work. Sid, do you know what you're doing this summer? Are you rowing? Aren't you on the rowing team?
Yes, I am on the lightweight rowing team here. I will be around here. I'm from Ithaca too, so I'm going to be around. But I am not having any in-person opportunities. I my trajectory here is sort of aimed towards grad school pretty heavily. I really want to go see if I can apply to PhD programs in communication. But so for what that looks like for me, I just got involved with, or I have been involved with, the Cornell Social Media Lab for a while. And so I'm going to be doing paid research there. But it's going to be on Zoom. I did agree with the grad student that I work with. We're working on a research project on TikTok, and I feel like I get involved in these things that I care about. Like the lab is something I care about. Like this internship has been a really wonderful experience. And the biggest bummer to me is like working so like closely, or like doing projects with people, communicating with them constantly, and then having like no idea how they operate in like a in-person sort of facet. So I'm really excited over the summer, even though I'm technically virtual for my lab. I'm going to be hopefully like meeting like informally with the people that I'm working with to like just like sit over coffee and like get some work done and something like that. So I'll be doing research. And there's a couple of like opportunities that I just interviewed for, like Cayuga Watchers is like a e-board there. I'm going to maybe be doing some stuff with that over the summer. We'll see. But in terms of that, that's what I'm doing. Just doing my research, focusing on studying for the GREs, and just kind of chugging along with like my undergraduate thesis.
So over the summer, I'm actually from Ithaca as well, and I'm helping my parents open up a restaurant downtown. It's going to be called The Milk Stand. It's going to be like an American diner type of vibe. So I'm going to be like setting up the menu, social media, all that stuff. And I'm also like, I'm going to study abroad in the fall. So I'm planning for a lot of that. It's really complicated because of COVID. But yeah, I'm exciting things to come over the summer.
That's so cool that you're opening
That's
up a
awesome.
restaurant. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to try it. Do you know where it's
Is it going to be open? Sorry, I just talked over you.
We're aiming to open it sometime over the summer, hopefully, if everything works out. And it's like, do you know it's downtown. Like, do you know where Burn Dairy is? Like off of Route 13, near Purity. It's in that location.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh, what's it called again?
The Milk Stand.
The Milk Stand. Wow. Oh my gosh. So it sounds like everyone's got some really exciting summer plans. Congratulations to everybody for these accomplishments. I feel like if anybody has anything else they want to say about anything we've discussed, masks, no masks, social cues, lack thereof, social distancing, virtual learning, in-person learning, virtual work, in-person work. We talked about a lot, but if anybody has any other concluding remarks they want to add, go for it.
Maybe we end with a quick discussion about Lou and our experience with him over this semester.
I'd love to hear about your experiences.
I had a great experience. I learned a lot. I really liked learning how to edit the podcasts, and it was awesome getting to know you guys. Overall, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say it was so fun working with you guys, and excited to hopefully see you in the fall in person for the first time.
Make fun of Lou at all?
I think it was fun to work with a boss who is like kind of quirky in his own way. You know, he has his mannerisms that are very funny. And I think that while like he can be sort of like funny with, I wanted to say something that I don't know if any of you were worried about this, but I'm always worried that he's mad at me over texts. Like he
Same. Oh my God.
Oh my
Same.
God. Lou, if you're listening to this, you sound angry over text. I'm sorry.
Wait,
like with all the ellipses, like the dot.
Oh my gosh, so many dots, and it's
so
like
ominous.
Or when Lou hits you with a K when you text him.
No, the funniest thing about his texting is I was so nervous. I was like texting Sophie because I was so nervous. It was like the first thing we like submitted into the folder, and like when we were editing the podcast, and then he was like, after you're done, share it in the group, something like group message or something, like I don't know. It didn't say group chat, but I texted him. I was like, "Hey, I'm all done."
Weird.
Yeah, it was like not a group chat, and I was like, "Hey, I'm all done. Like, let me know where I should put these or let me know where I should say like that it's done." Like, I thought it was something on Teams or like Drive or something. And then he texts in the group chat. He doesn't respond to my text, and he texts in the group chat, this is where you say it, Shawnee. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh shoot, did I just mess up? Like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I didn't know you meant group chat. And he was just like, ha ha. I was like, okay.
He said the text chat window. I just found it.
Text chat window. I was like, that's not a group chat.
Funny. Obviously that means the group chat.
I know. I guess I should have known, but I didn't know if there was a text chat window on Google Drive or something like that.
Yeah,
like looking for the chat.
Lou is so awesome to work for. He honestly, like, he's such a dad that, like, sometimes I'll be having a meeting with him about, like, Thrive. And he's like, literally last week, he says to me, I have a question. I was like, what? He goes, when was the last time Sophie Crippo cut her hair? It's very long. And I was like, oh, I guess it has been too long, but why did you just ask me that? That's exactly what my dad asked me 2 days ago. But yeah,
and yet
that's so funny.
And yet when he sounds mad over text, like you get on a meeting with him or you talk to him, like, in our meetings, and he seems like he's like always like his, smiley, like enthusiastic self. So you never, I feel like after a little bit of time, you get used to it, it's like, it's very, you realize that he's just very enthusiastic about how much like progress we all make and the strides we take, like working for him. And then also like academics, he was always like pushing that first, like that comes first. So that was important too.
Yeah, sure. He's so supportive of everything. I feel like he's really just such an ideal boss. Wow, we're really not roasting him. We're being quite nice instead.
We are being nice.
Well, that's
a good thing.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.